This is a tutorial that describes how to set up the security between a Google Fusion table and an App Inventor 2 application. To understand how this security works, I'm going to draw an analogy. Let's say I was planning to take a trip to visit my father who lives in a faraway city. The added complication here is that he's not going to be there when I arrive, and I need some way to get into his apartment and wait for him. What are we going to need to accomplish this? Well, first I need his physical address, so I can tell the cab driver where the building is. Second, I need to bring some ID for the doorman so he lets me up to my father's apartment. Luckily, my father has already told the doorman to be expecting me, so his doorman just needs to check to make sure that I have the right ID, so he lets me in and no one else. And third, I'm going to need a key to get into my father's apartment. Luckily, my father has already mailed me a key long ago, so I have no issues. If I get to his door, I can get in. Now, if we were to draw this analogy in the Google world, here's where we would get. In terms of my father's physical address, in the Google world, for getting at a Fusion table, we need an ID to ID which table we're working with. In terms of the ID I gave to the doorman to get through the door, I'm going to need a special email address. This email address is going to be given to me by the Google Developer Console. Likewise, instead of a physical key to get into my father's apartment, I'm going to need a key that's stored in a file with a P12 suffix. And this Fusion table key is also going to be given to me by the same Developer Console. So let's see how these three assets are created and then stored inside our AI2 app. Okay, let's have a quick look at the App Inventor 2 app here. I've got a Fusion table component which I get from the storage drawer, and I have a text label. So I'm going to use the Fusion table control to read the Fusion table, and I'm going to display the results of the table in this label. So let's go look at the blocks editor. This is my entire app. I've created a constant to hold a Fusion table ID. When the screen initializes, I use that Fusion table ID to retrieve the information, and then when the information shows up, I take that entire stream of information and I post it into the label text. So first, let's figure out where this asset came from here, which is the Fusion table ID. So to get that asset, I go over back to the Fusion table. I click on File, and I say About this table. And here we see the Fusion table ID shows up right here. And it's a big, long, nasty string, so I'm just going to copy and paste it here. So I just copy it here. And here in the App Inventor app, if this wasn't here, I would just paste that in. And there I've loaded my first asset. Okay, so now that we've loaded the Fusion table ID into our app here, let's go over to the web and go to the Google Developers Console and create those two other assets, namely the email address that we can use to access the Fusion table, as well as a key, a P12 key that we can use to get at the table. So to get to the Google Developers Console, I can just open up a Google search bar and type Google Developers Console, and the very first link that comes up brings me to the console. Alternatively, you can just type console.developers.google.com into your URL bar and it will bring you here. Now look over here, you'll see that this is the last project I worked on when I was the last time I was on the Developers Console. I'm guessing for many of you, you haven't worked on any projects, so this field will be blank. But regardless, we're going to create a brand new project for our app. So I'm going to come over here and pick the last item here which says Create a New Project. And I'm going to call this project YouTube Tutorial Project, like that. And I'm going to click the Create button, and in just a few seconds, Google's going to create a brand new project for me with that name. And the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to enable the Fusion Tables API for that new project that we just created. So under the heading Other Popular APIs, if I click on this Fusion Tables API, you'll see that a blue button appears with the word Enable, and I'm just going to click on that. And this takes about a minute, but it's going to allow the Fusion Tables to be used with our new project. Okay, so now that the Fusion Tables have been enabled, Google is now complaining that we haven't created any credentials yet to access the Fusion table. Okay, I'm going to click on this Credentials tab right here, which is going to bring up this Create Credentials menu, and then when I click here, it's going to be a little bit easier process for me. So when I click on credentials, it wants to know what kind of credentials to create. I want to create a software-to-software credential. So I'm going to pick this service account key, and when I click on that, it wants to know a couple of things. First, it wants to know what kind of key to make, and for App Inventor 2 we're going to need a P12 key, so I'm going to click on that one right there. And in terms of the service account, I'm going to create a new service account. What is a service account? A service account is a robot user, so you're a human user and you can establish credentials on this developer console, but here what I'm doing is I'm creating a robot user that also has credentials so that the robot user can access the Fusion table. The robot user, of course, is going to be MIT App Inventor 2, so that's the name I'll give to the robot user or service account. So I'll call it MIT App Inventor 2, and this is going to be the email address associated with this robot user. Now let's just have a look at this email address for a second, because something here has changed recently. In the olden days, which is to say a few months ago, this service account ID or email address used to be just a random string of numbers and letters, which was hard to work with. But one of the recent changes that Google has made to the developers console is that the service account ID now reflects the name of the service account, and even the rest of the email address is human readable. So that's a nice recent change to make things a little bit easier to see and use. And by looking at the email address, you can immediately tell if you got the right one or not when you install it into your app. Okay, so I'm going to hit the create button, and it's going to create this new robot user, and down here you can see it's also created a P12 key, but this key is not ready to go yet because I need to install this password in the key file. So I'm going to copy this password into my clipboard here, and then I'm going to click on this file here, and I'm going to hit next and next. It's going to ask for that password. I'm going to paste it in. You can see it's right here. Then I'm going to hit next and finish, and then it tells me that the key file is now been imported and is ready to go. Okay, so if I move over now onto my folder, I can see in my downloads that I have recently created this key. That's this key right here for the YouTube tutorial project, and I'm going to need to install that. But let's go back for a second to the developers console and click on this link where it says Manage Service Accounts. Okay, so you see here that this is MIT App Inventor 2. This is the robot user that I've just created. This is the email address associated with that user, and this is the name of the key file that contains the key. So first, let me take this email address, because I'm going to need to install that in two different places. The first place I need to put that email address is I'm going to go over here to the app, and when I click on the Fusion table control, I'm going to place that right here where it says service account email, and I'm going to just paste that right in there. And the next place that I need to install that email address is on my Fusion table itself. So here is my Fusion table. Look up here on the top right, you see that share button. If I click that button right now, you'll see that I am the only user currently authorized to access this Fusion table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that email address that I copied for my robot user, and I'm going to just install that right here. And since this is a robot user, there's no sense in sending the robot any email, so I'm going to unclick that box. And I'm going to have this box clicked here for a little additional security, and I'm just going to hit OK over here. And Google is warning me here that no email is going to be sent, but we know that's okay because that's a robot that we're installing anyway. So I'm just going to hit OK here. And now you can see that not only can I access the Fusion table, but this robot email address can also access the table. So I'm all done over there. And now I have installed the email address both on the Fusion table, telling it that the robot is a friend, as well as in my app here under the service account email. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to install the key file. So if I go back to my app here and go into the media drawer, I'm going to upload that key file by clicking on this button here and choosing the file. And then if I go over the downloads, I see that the key file that I made was this one right here. You can see it's got a little picture of a key on it. These are some other keys I made previously, but this is the one that's associated with this project. And I'm going to just hit the open button over there, and it's going to upload that file right into the media drawer. And then of course I have to take that same file and I have to install it here as the key file for the app. Okay, it's important, by the way, that the user sort of authentication button is checked here so that these credentials will be used every single time the app tries to access the Fusion table. Notice also that given the way that we're accessing this table, the API key field is left blank here in this field. To test out the app, I've added 2 rows of data to the Fusion table. And now I'm going to run the emulator to see what happens when I run the app. And here I'm going to run the app, and now you can see that I've accessed the Fusion table, and here's the information. Let's look at it side by side, information from the Fusion table, and here's how it shows on the screen on the app. So there you go.